Since we've talked about a newer, lesser-known horror title, I think we should switch gears and talk about a cult classic that's about to have its sequel released 20 years after its launch. Vampire the Masquerade-Bloodlines is an RPG released way back in 2004 on the good old Source engine. It was developed by the now defunct Troika Games, who had previously released 2 other solid RPGs up to this point, with some of the devs having worked on the original Fallout games. So bringing an edgy, goth version of D&D to PC seemed right up their alley. That's right, this game is an adaptation of a tabletop RPG geared towards the kids who smoked in the school bathrooms.
No, brother. There is no God who would tolerate such a thing. And so I have become God, and the diseases I carry to the masses will bring about an end of my own making. Until we have all journeyed below into the ninth circle.
Back in 1990, Mark Reinhagen, along with a business partner named Stuart White, merged their previous gaming companies in the White Wolf Game Studio. His first project that he conceptualized and was able to release within a single year was Vampire the Masquerade. It was a tabletop RPG similar to D&D. The main difference here is that it wasn't about going on epic quests, but rather planning and preparing before you actually made a move. It looked at tabletop RPGs and went at it from a completely different angle. So naturally, because of its success, it was only a matter of time before it came to digital media, especially in the early 2000s when video games were starting to be part of pop culture to the point to where even grandma had a PS2. Not only that, but the game itself takes place in a larger universe called the World of Darkness, and it's not the only video game adaptation of that world that exists. So with such a large world to try to understand, how does the game convey this information? Well, from the beginning, the game takes an all gas no brakes approach to getting you into the setting. You start out with a one-night stand before getting staked and taken to vampire court, where your sire, the person who had just sucked on your neck a bit too hard, is executed.
Forgive me. Let the penalty commence.
The prince of the LA Camarilla faction, Sebastian LaCroix, spares your life since he has use for you and because you haven't broken the masquerade. I know I just threw a lot of information at you, so let me slow down and explain a few things so you can be more grounded in the setting before we get into the actual game. Vampires existing in this world are not here just because. They can trace their lineage all the way back to Cain from the Bible. After Cain killed his brother Abel, God, with the help of his angels, punished Cain with the curse of vampirism, which came with an allergy to fire and the sun. Lilith, the supposed first wife of Adam, came into Cain's life and taught him how to use his vampiric powers. Soon after, Cain traveled to the first city of Enoch, sired 3 other people into vampires, and those 3 vampires sired 13 other people into vampires. Those 13 vampires are known as antediluvians, and they each founded one of the 13 vampire clans, which have their own respective powers that are either unique to them or shared with others. The 7 playable clans that are in the game are the Brujah, Gangrel, Nosferatu, Malkavian, Toreador, Tremere, and Ventru. Some of these clans prefer the presence of their own when it comes to politics or wars, but that doesn't mean they won't intermingle or betray other factions who may be made up of one or numerous clans. If the idea of factions and clans sounds like a lot, in the game clans are literally just classes. Don't think too hard on it. Every time I'm talking about a clan, just think class. Yes, there may be some political intertwining with clans and factions, but it doesn't go entirely too far. So now, the Camarilla faction has a foothold in LA and enforces something called the Masquerade. The purpose of the Masquerade is to deceive humans into believing that supernatural entities of any kind do not exist. If humans don't think vampires exist, why would they want to hunt them? They're essentially enforcers of the vampire world, and the oldest of the vampires often make up the higher ranks of the Camarilla. Because it's filled with elders who like to call the shots, a faction called the anarchs sprouted up, rejecting how vampire society is run in modern day society and can at times go to war with the Camarilla. They still respect the Masquerade because they're not stupid, they understand the idea of out of sight, out of mind. The Sabbat are another major faction, but for the purposes of this game, they're seen just as bad guy vampires and you don't need to look any further into them unless you want to. Finally, we have the Kuei Jin, which is a sect of vampires from the east who have set up camp in LA. You'll find out why on your own, but again, that's all you need to know about them for now. So where does that leave us? Well, after not being executed, you're put through a quick tutorial to show you how to use your newfound vampiric powers, then you wake up in your apartment ready to take on the vampire world. Obviously, this is an older title, so it's not going to do anything visually impressive by today's standards, but when compared to other titles released that same year, namely Half-Life 2 and Halo 2, it's not bad. Sure, character models can be blocky and texture quality can be all over the place, but they put a lot of effort into putting character into the environments and locations you'll visit, and somehow nothing feels out of place. Mainly because you occupy this underworld of vampires that try to be secretive more than anything, resulting in them living in less than satisfactory conditions. Of course, you're not confined to only these areas, but when you do explore a few places out of the ordinary, they don't feel too different from what you're already used to. As for the overall art direction, everything feels dirty. Everywhere you go feels like it has a layer of filth tying it all together. Whether it's the clothes of your vampiric counterparts, the dirty streets of LA, or the skin rooms, it feels like it's all tied together. So since this title takes place in the city most of the time, expect to get an accurate representation of what the citizens of LA have to deal with. They put in the effort of making the world feel lived in even though there aren't random shootouts between the police and other NPCs. I can appreciate it since it was built on Source and God knows what technical hurdles they had to overcome. Sure, half the things you hear aren't really happening and you can actually find where the sounds are coming from. But I will take this over deafening silence. As for the voice acting, it's outstanding.
Please, come in. I do apologize for my sister's crassness if it made you uncomfortable. She's unabashedly scandalous, but in the club business, I suppose that kind of personality's a necessary evil.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah, you're feeling it. I can see it in your eyes. You're a born-again predator. Feel that blood bubbling inside you, lifting you up. That's it, kid. That's what it's all about right there.
I mainly attribute this to them having a star-studded cast, voicing characters as opposed to making random interns do it instead. As excellent as the voice acting is, there are times where it can be ruined by the radios or ambient sounds being through the fucking roof.
That shit goes all the way back to Kate. Some ancient sleeping in a tomb half a world away has a bad dream. You don't feel that shit.
Generation bondsman. Got a few employees, but I handle most every aspect of the business.
First shot at Deb tonight.
I gotta have a few other bondsmen to keep the place open 24 hours, plus a bounty hunter. I pull the graveyard shift because that's when all the crazy shit happens in Santa Monica.
I'm working the late shift here at the...
And it's not isolated to these conversations. Firearms are so loud that it can be honestly hard to think at times. The EQ and balance is all over the place. I don't know if this is due to the Source engine itself or if the devs didn't have enough time to tighten it up. So with such a gritty look and down-to-earth ambience, how does the music complement what we've covered so far? Well, for starters, each of the main hub areas you'll be exploring all have their own themes that set them apart from one another. Then the interiors of some buildings will have their own themes and music that help them stand out from one another, like a dive bar where hard rock music is blasting to the point where you can't even think straight. Or a strip club with 90s porn music. Not only that, but there are level-specific tracks that'll set entirely different tones that can put you on edge. What's wild here is that you could place this music in other games and it creates the same tension. Even the menu music has such different directions within its own song that you can tell that it's giving you a little bit of everything the game has to offer. From the slow ambient start to a midsection that builds energy by slowly introducing more instruments to these techno and industrial sounds. The music at every stage in the game perfectly encapsulates the mood that they were going for. They even put in posters from numerous bands that fit into the vibe. Wait, I know that name. No joke, I was not expecting to see a Ghoul Town and Lacuna Coil poster in the same game, but this shit's right up my alley. One of the standout features of Bloodlines is the map design. Each of the main areas you'll explore, Santa Monica, Downtown, Hollywood, and Chinatown, are all oozing with their own character with NPCs that add to their own area's feel.
What's the score? How they hang? Good evening and all that commotion. Welcome to Fat Larry's Trucker Mac, the only store for all your needs after 10 o'clock. I am the proprietor and salesman of the month several years in a row. The ladies call me, oh God, but you can call me Fat Larry with a F-A-T, cause I know I got a weight problem, I just don't give a fuck.
Along with the shops, you'll find a church converted into a nightclub, strip clubs, and fish markets. On top of that, they all have their own locales to explore with their own little secrets to find if you look closely enough, so there's incentive for you to explore. My favorite parts about the environments is that you're not isolated to the 4 main areas. There's also independent areas that you'll explore as you progress through the main campaign. Going back to what I said earlier about all the levels having a layer of grime to them, this extends to those side areas as well, further connecting the game together. So it feels cohesive as opposed to jumping through a painting or something. You'll find yourself in a haunted hotel, a train yard, and even a crack house. The sheer amount of places you'll explore between going back to the main hub areas do a damn good job of breaking up some of the monotony you may run into. Alright, things are about to get complicated, so buckle up. When creating a character, you're presented with the 7 clans we talked about earlier who all have their own set of 3 powers. These powers require blood, more accurately blood points to use those powers. As you can probably figure out on your own is that you can feed on others to refill this bar. If no one is around, you can either find or buy blood bags to have on hand in a bind. If you're out of blood bags, look for a quick snack. As for powers, Bruja, who have a history of being warriors, have access to a speed boost with celerity while slowing down everyone around them. Potence, which buffs your attacks, and presence, which debuffs enemies close to you. Bruja also suffer a -2 to frenzy checks, and we'll get into that in a bit. Gangrel, or as I like to call them, Jonathan Davis, are loners who can turn into a protean form, which makes them a monster in melee. They can dive into their animalism and summon creatures or insects to kill enemies, and they can use fortitude to upgrade their soak. This is the best time to bring this up, so let's get it out of the way. Soak essentially reduces incoming damage from either melee attacks, ranged attacks, and lethal hazards in the environments, like fire. Gangrel also have a frenzy penalty. Malkavians who are legit schizophrenics can see through walls and objects with auspex, as well as going completely invisible with obfuscate. Additionally, they can make people go insane or instantly off themselves with dementation. This is only a taste of their insanity.
By the would-be robbers were thwarted by a diner patron turned vigilante. Witnesses saw the vigilante run from the diner after they were alerted by the sound of gunfire inside. Police have stated that vigilantism will not be tolerated, and that they know it was you.
Nosferatu, who are vampires that have only ever been fucked by God, maybe a little too hard, can summon creatures with animalism, go invisible with obfuscate, and can pack a punch with potence. Because of their unfortunate fucking, they cannot be seen by mortals or else it will result in a masquerade violation right on the spot.
Huh? Oh my god! Someone call the CDC! It's one of the plague victims! Get away from me!
So you end up becoming a sewer dweller for most of the game. Let's go ahead and talk about the Masquerade and how it affects the game. You see, mortals don't, or at least shouldn't, know that you exist, and the Masquerade serves as a tool for vampires to police themselves so the world doesn't know of their existence. The ways you can break the Masquerade are by using your powers in front of mortals, feeding on people in the streets, and generally being a monster can cause a Masquerade violation. After a few of these violations, vampire hunters will track you down, and after 5 violations, the Camarilla does its job. There are a few side quests you can do to restore your standing with the Masquerade, but very few, so be careful with your powers. The Toreador, who are masters at blending in with human society, have access to auspex to see through walls, a speed buff with celerity, and a debuff with presence. Tremere are more in tune with their magical abilities, so much so that they're often referred to as mages, warlocks, and wizards. These guys can make others reenact Jonestown and turn people into literal blood bombs. Our final clan is Ventru. Vampires in this clan tend to either be CEOs, aristocrats, or those who hold immense power through politics. They can use Dominate to make people off themselves, Presence to debuff enemies, and Fortitude to be a bit tankier in a fight. The Ventruvians, I don't know if that's a word for them, but fuck it, now it is. The Ventruvians have a superiority complex and sees themselves above others who are either less fortunate or those who are dirty, which becomes a problem when you don't have blood because they don't get blood points when feeding on the homeless or rats. Remember that this game is based off of dice rolls, and even if you don't see them, they're still rolling. And one of those dice rolls is the frenzy check. If you fail a frenzy check, the beast inside will come out and attack or feed on anything it can. can. Now there are ways to avoid this problem. The most obvious is to keep your thirst satiated and keep that blood meter filled. The other way is to hold on to your humanity. If you kill a civilian outside of a combat zone, you'll lose 1 point of humanity. As time goes on and you continue to be an asshole vampire, frenzy will trigger more often. There are ways to restore your humanity though. But again, these opportunities are limited. So, how do you build your characters? Well, at first, this is insanely intimidating, but I promise if you take a second and read through it, you'll understand it pretty quickly. I'll give you a quick overview. Every one of these skills contribute towards one or two of your feats on the right of the page. To boil it down, feats are more or less your collective skill in a certain thing, and your attributes and abilities are more specific and can contribute to more than one feat. Strength, brawl, and dodge contribute towards your combat feats, while dexterity and stealth make you better at sneaking. You get it. Take your time reading through these until you get the gist of how these affect your character. You can easily min-max a character to be a jack of all trades, or you can run each class according to what you feel they might specialize in, like dumping all your points into melee abilities if you play a Brujah or a Gangrel, or making a Toreador or a Vantruvian a master of persuasion, or making a Nosferatu a master of stealth so he doesn't scare the locals. If you decide to not spec into stealth as a Nosferatu because you're some kind of masochist, you do have access to sewer systems in each of the main areas to navigate towards objectives. One thing that this title does differently than most other RPGs is that the experience system is entirely different than what you'd expect. You see, you don't get experience from killing enemies, you only get it from completing quests, which is a good way to prevent a player from farming kills to max out a character. There is a benefit though. On my first playthrough, I wasn't exactly sure what was or wasn't a side or main quest, so I ended up trying to do every quest in the game. The reason I was confused as to what was or wasn't a main or side quest is because the game doesn't tell you that. You kind of have to guess or already know going into it. Not only that, there are a few goodies you'll stumble upon if you explore. So on your first playthrough, definitely take the opportunity to knock out those quests so you can max out your powers. Even though there is no post game, there's ample reason to go back and play it a second time. As I mentioned earlier, you have 7 classes to play around with and can build them completely differently from one another. Again, the main differences between them are their powers, passive abilities, and stat changes, but if you approach each character differently, the game will be different enough for it to matter. As for the story changes, none really exist aside from the game having multiple endings. Don't worry about early in-game choices affecting anything, you'll know when you're at the end and when choices actually matter. In my first playthrough as a Vantruvian, I aligned myself with LaCroix the whole way through since I saw my character above the peons of vagrants that filled the city streets. When I played my Gangrel, I tried to align myself with the Anarchs and I was hoping that they had their own quest line to follow, but unfortunately that doesn't exist. So my Gangrel still had to report to LaCroix whether I wanted him to or not. From a role-playing standpoint, that kind of sucks, but at least there's an in-game reason as to why you're always working for him.
I can't give you another reason. You will go to the Elizabeth Dane.
For my subsequent playthroughs of Tremere, Brujah, Nosferatu, Malkavian, and Toreador, I really wasn't concerned with story elements. I was just interested in how differently they played and how fun their powers were. Like I said earlier, you can build any of these classes how you want, with the main differences being the powers you have access to. My first playthrough of the game took, no joke, just under 24 hours to complete. I did do most of the side quests along the way and forgot to quick save at a few points, so I had to replay through a few small bits, listen to the same dialogue, and rewatch cutscenes on multiple occasions. Typically that amount of playtime would get high praise from me, considering most titles even nowadays struggle to craft an interesting plot that lasts more than 8 hours. But towards the end of the game, you run into waves upon waves of enemies and it becomes painfully obvious that it's all padding. Because of the padding, Bloodlines presents with a unique problem that's difficult to solve. By this point in the game, you should be a god tier vampire with multiple weapons, stockpiles of ammos and blood packs, and plenty of powers at your disposal, making these final sequences more annoying than they are challenging, which is fine on your first playthrough, but what about your next one? Do you really want to complete all those side quests again? You don't get experience points for killing enemies, so you have to level up somehow, so replaying through all the content is your only option. Do you risk it and try to stick to only main quests for subsequent characters so you don't get burned out? If you try to do that, there's a good chance you'll make it towards the end of the game and have to bash your head against a brick wall while fighting the hordes of enemies because you're not leveled enough. Thankfully, there is a way around this conundrum, and that's to simply wait a few weeks before diving back in. I started my Gangrel playthrough the day after I finished the game, so to say I was burned out would be an understatement. If I had waited a bit, I'm sure it wouldn't have been as painful. Aside from allowing people to make TF2 FMVs and brain rot for iPad kids, the Source engine and its games have a history of having more bugs in it than a Reddit mod's house, and Bloodlines was no exception. At the time of its release, Bloodlines was riddled with so many bugs that it caused a rare and deadly chain reaction to occur. When critics got their hands on it and inevitably ran into problems like doors soft locking you, level load triggers not executing, or the general wonkiness of the AI, they weren't shy about letting people know. Since potential buyers saw that the game was a technical mess, it wasn't able to sell nearly as many copies as it could have, which led to the studio getting a bad rap. Then, when it came to find another publisher for a new project, the bad reputation had followed them and they weren't able to secure a deal, and in a mere 3 months after Vampires had released, Troika shut down. This wasn't entirely their fault though. They did go over budget, had deadlines extended numerous times, and were lacking a producer for over a year. These bumps in the roads led their publisher, Activision, to give them not only a shitty deadline, but a cursed one. Their game had to be released on November 16th, 2004, the same day Half-Life 2 released. Now, I've heard of corporate assholes doing shitty things, but forcing a dev team to release a title on the same day as another game that would go on to become one of the greatest games of all time makes it seem like the guy who forced this deadline has a chair in his bedroom. So to avoid any of the wonkiness or annoyances that exist, download the unofficial patch I have linked down below. It fixes a majority of issues, and if you want, it can add a ton of unused content, from levels, weapons, and items all the way to dialogue and characters. The only warning I will give you with this mod though is that you either have to set your game's launch options in Steam to use the mod, or just launch it from the desktop. Without spoiling it, your main motivation is doing quests for LaCroix in pursuit of an ancient sarcophagus rumored to contain a great evil, and LaCroix isn't the only one interested. There are points where the story becomes dull and it seems like it won't end, and at the same time, there are memorable sections that can't be ignored. It's a bunch of highs and lows that may keep you engaged to the end, but honestly, I'm not a fan of the story. The end goal is to obtain a sarcophagus and open it with a few speed bumps along the way. Now, how does the game keep you interested? Honestly, it boils down to each and every individual character interaction you'll have during your journey. They go beyond just being rudimentary quest givers. They have a faction or organization they belong to a specific clan with its own history and quirks, and they might not all contribute to the main plot line, but they contribute to the world overall. It gets really interesting when you take a step back and realize that these beings are hundreds, maybe thousands of years old, so whatever interpersonal conflicts they have with one another aren't there for brief plot devices, but rather decades of interpersonal character conflicts that have lasted centuries. They are not surface level characters that are just phoned in to fill a role or a plot device. They have a genuine history. So if you decide to dive into the world of darkness, be sure to speak with all the characters you can, human or otherwise. Now, like I said, the main plot isn't anything to write home about, but I'm going to cover it anyway, so if you don't want it spoiled for you, then go to here. Since you're the new kid on the block, the first chapter revolves around you taking care of some Sabbat in a warehouse near Santa Monica, but there's a few hiccups. First, your contact Mercurio was jumped during a deal gone wrong, and now it's your job to exact revenge or talk your way out of a gunfight. Mercurio was after an explosive called Astrolite, and after retrieving it, he tells you what it was for.
You need to make someplace disappear. A warehouse.
Looks to be a Sabbat interest. There's a guy. I never met him, but I heard a lot about him. His name is Tong. Bertram Tong. He's one of you types. If there's anyone who knows more than me about this city, it's him. Unfortunately, Tong's hiding out at the moment.
Alrighty then. So we have to find Tung, but he's hiding because of a feud between him and a woman named Therese Vorman, who's found at the Asylum nightclub. After making our way there, we run into her sister.
Ooh, what do we have here? Another scrumptious young plaything straight out of life and into my club?
I've
been really trying, baby.
Anyway, that's Jeanette, Therese's sister. Before you actually get to speak with Therese, you hear her and her sister arguing, and before you step in, Jeanette locks herself in the bathroom while you talk to Therese.
Please, come in. I do apologize for my sister's crassness if it made you uncomfortable.
She'll agree to end the feud between her and Tung if you retrieve a medallion from a dilapidated hotel. The Ocean House Hotel is one of, if not my favorite levels in the game. I'm not going to talk about it other than the fact that it's an absolute tone shift that'll catch you off guard, and that there's even a console command to skip this level entirely. Anyway, after retrieving the medallion, you return to the nightclub to speak with Therese, and instead you find Jeanette.
Like I feel, baby.
Do you know Gallery Noir down the street? I happen to know there's a charity event being organized there. Lots of influential Santa Monicans slithering in for token appearances. But there's one thing they don't know. The whole event's been set up by a kindred trying to establish their own power clique in our city. And we can't let that happen, can we? So I need some brilliant young upstart to spoil the milk.
Anyway, she had you take down the vampiric art gallery. Oh no. Oh no. Whatever's about to happen, please. Oh shit! Which turned out to be her sister's, who's not happy about it.
Don't lie to me! Jeanette already confessed she tricked you into doing it. It was probably all Tung's idea. I'll deal with them later. But that's still no excuse for you ruining my museum.
In order to finally call off the feud, you need to get the two sisters together to talk out their grievances. So after a quick stop to a local diner, things go south.
I'm terribly sorry about that. My sister was just furious about your refusal to take part in her designs, so she sent those men to kill you. But I'm going to make sure it never happens again. Drop by. We'll take care of this Tung business. She's crazy! Help! You. I'm really sorry it had to end this way. I truly am. You seemed promising, but you've been tainted by the stink of my sister's schemes. And now, I'm going to make sure she never double-crosses me again. Don't listen to her. She'll kill us both. Save me and I'll help you find Bertram. I swear.
No, 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 no. Don't make me choose. No!
I do not wish to be horny anymore. I just want to be happy.
Now that that nightmare is over, Tung has come out of hiding and will guide you to the Sabbat hideout where you can promptly slaughter everyone inside and blow it up. After that, you have a quick chat with a man named Beckett and are off to downtown LA. And that's it for the first chapter. Sure, there's a tutorial area you go through in the beginning of the game, but the first chapter really gives you a feel for what the game's all about.
Let's drain it. Let's take it and leave it out for the sunrise.
We're going to have a lot of fun with this one. Think you could blow up our warehouse and get away with it? Ah, lick.
Let's pull out its eyes, its tongue, and its teeth. I want its teeth.
Camarilla fuck. Boys, I think we could all use a little entertainment. Those of you sitting in the first few rows will get wet. Son of a bitch!
Leave.
There's 3 of us, Rodriguez.
Yeah. 3 of us.
What are you gonna do? Shoot us? This ain't over. We'll find you. You too, Rodriguez. You're both dead. Nobody messes with a Sabbat and lives.
Keep moving. Trouble sure seems to like him. Good effort. Execution needs a little work.
Nines Rodriguez is a Brujah leader of the Anarchs in LA. You get a brief introduction to him before actually making it to downtown. Now that you're in downtown LA, you meet up with LaCroix and he sends you to a ship called the Elizabeth Dane to confirm that something called the Ankaran sarcophagus is on board. While there, you confirm the presence of the sarcophagus, gather the ship's manifest, and report back to LaCroix. Let me take a second and remind you again that the main plot isn't incredibly complex and that you'll enjoy the side content more than you will the main content. And honestly, you should, because there's some good stuff in here. Anyway, the Primogens, otherwise known as elders of a particular clan in a particular region, are inquiring about a missing Malkavian Primogen named Dr. Grout before LaCroix shoos them away. You report your findings to him before being sent out to find this Dr. Grout. Before actually getting into the mansion, you run into Nines? What's he doing here? That answer will have to wait. We have to find the Malkavian Primogen. Shit. When I said Malkavians were legit schizophrenics, I meant it. This mansion is filled with hidden rooms, switches, and all manner of things that don't make sense. The mansion feels more like a funhouse going up and down towers just to get to a simple room, and having to throw switches in one wing to unlock a door in another wing. To top it all off, you get to listen to audio logs of Dr. Grout as he comes to terms with what he is and his descent into madness.
I am no longer safe. I know it. The voices have proven themselves authentic, and I have withdrawn from the Vampire Society entirely. My absence will no doubt draw attention, but I could no longer hold my fragile composure around the ravenous eyes of my vampire peers, especially not around him. The voices compelled me to make what I fear is a Faustian bargain, but I had to, for their demands are constant and merciless. I have secluded myself within the mansion. I know he will strike out at me. He will go to any length to achieve his ambitions, and he knows it, I know. I have taken precautions to protect my beloved wife. A cure will have to wait until our immediate safety is guaranteed. The mansion was constructed with security in mind, but at that time I was not privy to the full range of vampire capabilities. The voices echo in the twisted corridors of my psyche, dark whisperings of a macabre and formless menace, the approach of which portends an end to all of this.
Eventually, you do find the good doctor. God damn it. After escaping a literal insane asylum, you report back to LaCroix, who explains to you that the man who caused the fire at Dr. Grout's mansion was a hunter, a human who knows vampires and other supernatural beings exist. You also reveal to him that you saw Nines leave right before you got there. Suspicions are starting to sprout, but LaCroix has other matters he wants you to attend to. The Ankaran sarcophagus has been moved to the Natural History Museum nearby and he wants you to retrieve it. So you sneak in, bite a few necks, and find the sarcophagus.
I can't understand why someone would go through the trouble of stealing a box with a very ancient corpse. This city's not that dull.
God damn it, someone got to it before us. LaCroix isn't going to like this.
Stolen? How? Who would...
Oh, Gary. Gary, you treasonous maggot.
I should have anticipated your treachery, sewer rat!
Not only is he pissed that it's gone, but he's also called a blood hunt on Nines as well. Now's the best time to explain why everyone is after the sarcophagus. You see, it's rumored that it contains an antediluvian, one of the 13 of the third generation vampires, and that it could also mark the beginning of Gehenna. In other words, the end of the world. LaCroix wants to contain its power through diablerie, which means feeding on another vampire to gain its powers. And let me be clear, he doesn't explicitly say that in any of the conversations, at least that I can find, but it's heavily implied that those are his intentions. Now off to the third chapter of the game, Hollywood, to track down the Nosferatu primogen named Gary Golden. You're told to visit an anarch named Isaac to get information of his whereabouts, and of fucking course, you have to do him a favor before he'll help you out. He needs help tracking down two things. One, the source of a snuff film, and those who filmed it. After tracking down and dealing with those involved, your investigation of where the video was filmed is revealed to be a nearby home in the Hollywood Hills. You break in and... wow, okay. There's dudes in here. What the fuck? Is that skin? I want to take the opportunity again to say that the levels they made for this title are phenomenal. Like, whoever had the idea to have Buffalo Bill to be this home's interior designer is a genius. Which brings us to my next question. Who actually decided to do the decorating?
Hello, young K-Knight. I see your face is not so lifeless. Your nerves not so deadened that you cannot express shock.
This is a member of the Zemissi clan. They're another clan that, without getting too far into it, are sadists who are focused on transcending vampirism. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to mean, but maybe the next game will give us a bit more insight. Anyway, you fight him, he escapes, and you find a way into the Nosferatu warrens. You travel what feels like miles through a maze of sewer systems with a few puzzles in the way to finally reach the Nosferatu home, where you find their primogen, Gary Golden, and you guessed it, you gotta do a favor for him before he'll tell you where the sarcophagus is. He sends you into the fourth chapter of the game, Chinatown, to find and return a Nosferatu named Barbarous, safely back to their hideout. He instructs you to visit Ming Zhao, a vampire leader of the Kuei Jin. This presents our last major faction of the game, and it's a unique one. The Kuei Jin have set up shop in Chinatown, and for once we're not questioning as to why. Without getting too much into it, you complete a quest line that eventually leads you to Barbarous and have to free him. He gives you the location of the sarcophagus, you infiltrate a party, steal the sarcophagus, bring it to LaCroix, and it's locked. Beckett informs you of the archaeologist who found the sarcophagus and instructs you to ask him where the key is, which leads us to the final chapter of the game. I'm going to try and quickfire this since this video is probably already long enough, and as you can probably figure out by now, your princess is always in another castle. Here we go. You break into where the archaeologist is, kill Bach the vampire hunter, and finally speak to the archaeologist who has no idea where the key is.
I haven't seen the key since it was loaded onto the Elizabeth Dane in Turkey.
God damn it! Anyway, you report back to LaCroix to find that his tower was just attacked by the Sabbat, and he sends you to exact revenge on them. And no shit, this level takes close to half an hour to fight through. It's nothing but waves and waves and waves of enemies. Towards the end of this crack house, you find a gruesome but somewhat familiar room.
I recognize the smell of your blood, young K-Knight.
Anyway, you kill him, leave the building, and run into Ming Zhao, who probably gives us the most interesting story element of the main plot in the entire game.
Opportunity to rid himself of two problems: a hardened rebel leader and a problematic primogen in one fell stroke. And as you can see, I was integral to his plan.
Her and LaCroix have been working together behind the scenes, driving other factions out of LA, and have been using you as a pawn. We were sent to Dr. Grout's mansion to witness Ming Zhao disguised as Nine so he could be framed for Dr. Grout's death, thus giving LaCroix more than ample authority to call blood hunt on him. Not only that, she reveals that she is in possession of the key and has hidden it. So time to head back and tell LaCroix what we just found out. Since I was role-playing as a Ventruvian, loyal to LaCroix and the Camarilla, I confronted him about it and didn't make a big deal of it, saying I would have done the same. He calls off the blood hunt against Nines and asks you to meet with him to form a proper alliance to drive out the Kuei Jin. You meet Nines in Griffith Park to work out the alliance, and it was a trap.
Something's not right. Not what I mean, kid. Smell that? Smells like smoke. We gotta get out of here. Shit! It's leaving! Come on, kid, we gotta get inside that building until it comes back.
You have to wait for the cable car to return while running away from the werewolf hunting you. There's a proper way to complete this level, but I just stood in one spot and the AI just kinda bugged out. After escaping via cable car, Jack's waiting for you at the bottom to take you back to Santa Monica and goes on to explain that LaCroix has betrayed you by calling a blood hunt on you. So you have to fight your way out of Santa Monica and reach a cab that will take you out of the city and start the final sequences of the game. During this cab ride, you can decide what ending you want. You and the cab driver will go back and forth on who to side with. I really like this conversation because the cab driver is playing devil's advocate most of the time and makes you really consider your options. Depending on what you choose, you'll be automatically teleported to the final areas, working your way towards targets who have wronged you. I'm only going to cover my review playthrough endgame and its ending for time's sake. If you want to see other endings, you can play the game yourself or just look it up. Since I've been betrayed by both Ming Zhao and LaCroix, I get in contact with Strauss, the primogen of the Tremere, and devise a plan to take both of them down. It's essential that he's in on the plan since, like myself, he sees the value of the Camarilla and the Masquerade. So off to Chinatown we go to essentially wipe the Kuei Jin off the face of the LA map and kill Ming, but she has other plans.
You will have time to ponder this folly as you are devoured by worms and disease in the hell of burrowing maggots. 1,000 years shall you suffer.
Of all the things that have happened in this game, I wasn't expecting a vampire to turn into a Lovecraftian creature. Anyway, you kill her, get the key to the sarcophagus, and depending on the cab ride decisions, you fight your way up to LaCroix's penthouse and get one of the final cutscenes.
Considerable for one so young. You will be a great asset in the years to come, and the sarcophagus will reside safely in the hands of the Camarilla. I told you before that there are some powers in this world that are best left undisturbed. I don't know what lies in the sarcophagus, and I believe that it may be in our best interests not to find out if these be the final nights of our existence. I do not rush to bring about Gehenna any sooner than it need come. Let the shadows of time cover this dark treasure, so that eventually it fades even from our memories. Some things are best forgotten, mate. Some things are best forgotten.
So the story here is meh. It's very much the formula we saw in the 2000s of putting obstacles in front of the player as they try to progress, instead of having writing, level design, and overall game design that pushes the player forward while also challenging them. Granted, this was released in 2004 and Troika wasn't the only one doing the formula of find quest giver, do quest, and report back, so I'm not holding that against them, but it does get old, especially on your second or third time around. One thing I didn't want to spoil are the more notable side and main quests that are a blast your first time through, so if you decide to play through it yourself, there will be some goodies you'll run into. I've been actively ignoring anything that has to do with the sequel, but I will go out on a limb and say that it's not anything great. Really, the only reason I think this is because their last game, Still Wakes the Deep, was absolute dog ass. So I'm not expecting anything good. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong, but I doubt I am. Thankfully though, the original will always be here. The settings of most modern fantasy RPGs don't have much thought put into them besides lines of mystic babble that facilitates a main plot rather than creating a cohesive world in which the main plot takes place. In Bloodlines, however, because it was an already established IP with rules, factions, laws, and setting, it's able to get a player invested into a world rather than what's happening right in front of them. Sure, the main story isn't anything great, honestly, but as I've already said, the world is way more interesting. If there weren't so many technical problems with this title, I could easily recommend it. Sadly, because it's a technical mess, I can only give you a cautious recommendation. I did enjoy my time with it and will most likely play through it again at some point in time, but I can never look at someone in the eye and tell them to play this game and not expect to jump through some hoops. Vampire the Masquerade-Bloodlines is a unique RPG, and it's no surprise it's a cult classic. The role-playing elements are fun. The gameplay can be engaging even though it drags on towards the end, but most importantly, it's an RPG that stands above the rest with its overall lore and world building.